and welcome to Mental Health Mondays. My name is Jenna Kelland. I'm a holistic nutrition coach and mom of 3 kids with special needs, and I really get passionate about helping people understand that there are many tools in their toolkit they can use to support their mental health and wellness. Medication is one of them, but there's other options as well, so I like to share that. And so on Mental Health Mondays, we bring together guests who can give us different perspectives on what can support our mental health and wellness, or give us a new or expanded understanding of mental health. And so today, my guest is Jen Gutfriend, who is a mindset coach and hypnotherapist. Welcome, Jen.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm excited for you to be here too, and I'd love for you to maybe start by telling us a little bit about yourself and your story, and why you're interested in mental health.
Yeah, so I didn't realize this until just a couple of years ago, but I have a long family history of mental health issues. But nobody ever talked about that in my family because it was so taboo. So I remember myself at 14 years old, didn't want to get out of bed. I was exhausted all the time. It was to the point my mom thought something was wrong. So she took me to the doctor. The doctor ran all the tests. And then nothing came up. And I remember sitting down in the office with him and my mom and him going, "Well, are you depressed?" And the first thought in my mind was, I can't be. No, I can't say this. Like, there was just this big stigma. Like, it was never talked about, but I just knew that you didn't talk about it. So I denied it, like, left, right, and center. I was like, no, I'm not depressed. But looking back now, I was very depressed, but I couldn't talk about it. So I just kept stuffing it down and stuffed it down more and more. And I found myself at 29 years old going through a divorce. Literally, my body was shutting down on me. I had been pushing myself too much. I'd been stuffing things down for so long. I had literally hit full blown burnout. My body was shutting down. The doctors are like, "Well, we can't do anything for you. We don't know what's going on." And that was a big wake up call for me. I realized that I had spent my whole life focused on everyone else's happiness, that I wasn't focusing on my own. And just before my 30th birthday, I realized if I'm going to continue to go on living, I need to do something differently. I need to focus on my own happiness, which started me on my self development journey. I started first by reading books, and then all of a sudden, this whole piece around mindset started showing up. So I started digging into that. And when I started reading about the subconscious mind and how we develop these mindset blocks or these beliefs and how they're all created based off of things that we've seen or heard, or even thoughts we created in our mind when we were so young, it all made sense to me. So I started on this journey of overhauling my life, my mind, everything. And it was the best thing I ever did. I've never been happier. I did the counseling route. Then I started with the hypnotherapy, which is why I became a hypnotherapist, because it was so powerful. And even now, I'm actually getting my psychology degree just so that I can understand the mind even more and to understand things. And then to find out just a few years ago that all these mental health issues have come up in my family. I mean, my grandmother dealt with it. I found out just this last year that they actually committed my grandmother. Nobody ever said anything. I've got an aunt right now who's struggling with mental health, who's been in and out of the hospital twice in the last 6 months. And I just look at it and I go, thank God I am who I am now. And I've dealt with these things, and I'm not that person. I'm not in my 60s battling with mental health issues, that I was able to get control. Not to say that I'm perfect, because even when we deal with them, we're not perfect, but I can cope and I can handle things. And my life is so much better and truly happy now. Not the fake happiness we say to put on that show, but I really am actually happy with myself and my life for once.
All right, I see so many similarities of that, going through burnout, of kind of recreating, rebuilding your life based on what you've learned, and kind of for me it was I'm not going back to this place again. I'm going to learn everything I can to prevent that from happening. So for me, I went looking at food and nutrition and such around mental health, but you've got a different perspective, so it's great. And I know you work around trauma and talk a lot about that. Do you want to tell us about how trauma relates to mental health?
Sure. So a lot of our issues, our mental health issues, are caused by what we consider traumatic events. And people think, oh, well, nothing traumatic happened to me when I was a child. Because I'll ask them, well, was there any traumatic events? But the thing is most people don't understand is trauma is anything that upsets us. And when we're younger than age 5, a lot of things upset us. So we think of, what trauma is, like PTSD, it's soldiers, they go to war, they see horrific things. But you got to remember that we see horrific things in our own life too. And when we're young, we got to remember that children up to the age of 6, they don't have that reasoning, that conscious thought. They don't have the ability for cause and effect. So the things we see as a young child actually that may not be traumatic to an adult can actually be very traumatic to a child. So I've worked with many women whose parents divorced at a young age. And that actually is a trauma. When you have parents that are maybe yelling and screaming at each other, you know, a parent disappears and never comes back because they've divorced. On a young child, those are very traumatic. And the thing with trauma, once we experience it, we actually hold on to it in our body and in our subconscious mind. And if we don't know about it, if we don't recognize it, because when we receive these traumas, we're so young, we don't realize they're there. So we carry these traumas with us our whole life, and they keep causing us to repeat these same cycles, these toxic cycles over and over again. Or we deal with mental health issues, we're anxious, we're depressed, we're not happy, we don't know what's going on with us, and we can't figure out why. When really it's something that happened to us, and all we have to do is uncover what was that story, what did I take away? Because a lot of times it's not what happened, it's what we believe happened. So as children, we make up these stories about things. So something that maybe didn't seem traumatic to you now, you look back at it as a child, you see that completely different, like a parent walking away. You know, as parents, you think, oh, but we did the best thing for our child and they're happy. But did you really address the issue the child had? Was there trauma there? And there's so many other things that happen, you know, traumatic events, something simple as a car crash. Um, with me, I had an older sibling who had intermittent explosive disorder, which again, my mom would not get any help for and didn't even acknowledge. So I lived in fear in my own home all the time, wondering, is this the day, like, is he going to beat me up again? Am I going to say the wrong thing and he's going to explode again? Like, I was always walking on eggshells. So for me, that's what started my journey, is this feeling of never being safe in my own home. And I see that in so many women, this feelings of not being safe, of not being loved. And all of those things create these beliefs that we carry with us throughout our life and we don't even know about.
All right, I've got all sorts of things going through my head. I've got two questions for you, and I'll tell you both of them. You can decide. One, what do we do once we have this information? And two, as a parent, how do we help our kids? So hopefully they don't get into these situations. Like, what do we do differently there? So both of those, choose what you want to talk about.
Yeah, well, we can talk about both. So the big thing is a lot of times we don't know, but you can start seeing patterns. So I ask people to notice the patterns in your life. What are similar patterns? Like for me, it was relationships. I kept getting into toxic relationships because I learned as a child that relationships aren't safe, that that being with somebody, it's not safe, that this is what I deserved. I wasn't good enough to be protected. So I'm not good enough to have love and I'm not good enough to have happiness. So I allowed myself to get in these relationships where I wasn't loved and treated well. And it just was the same thing over and over again. And in my conscious mind, I'm going, what am I doing wrong? Like, why am I allowing myself to this? But the thing is our conscious mind isn't in control. Our subconscious is. Consciously, we're going, what the hell's going on? But subconsciously, our mind gives us what it thinks we want. And what it thinks we want is what we've seen as children. So if you are going through these same cycles, keep asking yourself, what is the patterns? What's going on? Or seeing the patterns of thought. What are things that you catch yourself saying? I don't know how many women I hear them say over and over again, I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. And when you start thinking about these patterns, then start asking, where did I first hear that? Because it wasn't you who created that belief. It was you heard someone say that. And so if you heard someone say something like, you're not good enough, you're useless, you're worthless, you're so dumb when you're a child, you're going to take that on as your own, whether you want to or not. So parents that have young children, watch what they're saying about themselves. I have a 13-year-old niece that I'm working with right now, and she talks about every once in a while about how she's ugly and how she's fat because she's got a little bit of belly. She's going through puberty. Of course, she's going to have a little bit of extra fat. This girl is absolutely gorgeous. Anyone who meets my niece, all they can compliment is how beautiful she is. She's tall, she's thin, but in her mind, she doesn't measure up. And that her mom is super skinny and petite and tiny. And she, of course, sees the magazines and sees all these young girls. And the thing is every time you hear your children say bad things about themselves, stop them. stop what they're doing and talk with them and tell them, like, ask them, well, where did you hear this? Who told you that? And then help them believe and see that there's different. One of my girlfriends, her daughter was having issues with this. She's only 6 years old. So now every night she lays with her in bed and they do affirmations together based off of some hypnosis we were doing with my friend. And she just lays there and she rubs her daughter's back and she goes, I am pretty, I am beautiful, I am perfect, I am enough. And her daughter loves that. Like, that's her favorite thing ever. She can't wait till bedtime till her mom does this with her. And her confidence has risen, and other issues, mental health issues, other things have started to go away because she's starting to feel better about herself. And it just takes that adult, that person that we trust, to start saying something different and making us see different. And that can make all the difference in the world.
And yeah, I can share a story of how kids misinterpret things. My mom has told me this, but apparently, as a child growing up in the 80s, painted vans were a thing, where they had
Yeah.
the whole side was decorated in mermaids or something. And I wanted one of those. I thought we should do that. And my mom said something like, we don't have money for that. And in my mind, that meant we're going to starve, right? Like, we have no money for anything. Not, our priority is not really painting the side of our vehicle. We have other things that are more important to us. But, how kids can so easily take something out of context and give it a different meaning. So yeah.
Exactly, because we don't have that reasonable thought. We're children. We barely have a strong vocabulary. I mean, kids can't read or write till 5, 6 years old, and we can't reason. Like, you take a toy and you put it behind your back, and a lot of children think it's gone. Like, they don't understand different concepts like we do. So it is, and that's, I see it with money blocks all the time. Women say, this is one of my biggest things women come to me for. And they go, why can't I? And then we uncover this belief that one of the biggest ones is women can't have money. It's a man's job to make money. Our generation, especially, because a lot of our moms still stayed home and work. Well, dad went out and worked. So a lot of our generation and the older generation believe that, well, it's a man's job to make money. So when we don't allow ourselves to, or there's the beliefs, the number one belief is, I'm not enough. 95% of the women out there at some point in their life created that belief that I'm not enough. And as long as you have this belief that you're not enough, you don't allow good things to happen in your life.
Yeah, so I think that there's, they talk about intergenerational trauma, but also we get this because we're raised by people who have the same belief, right? Our parents, our mothers probably had those same beliefs about themselves, which would then affect how they treated us and how we saw them interacting with the world. So,
Exactly. Through my psych degree, we've learned that truly only 5% of mental health issues are truly considered genetic. Like, they're actually genetic, predisposed, no matter what, you're going to get this if you get this gene. The rest are from epigenetics. It's a matter of our environment acting on our genes. So it's not our genetics that are saying that we're the third or fourth generation to have anxiety. It's that environment we grew up in. If you have an anxious parent and you have an anxious grandparent and a great grandparent, it's because you're in that environment and you're seeing that anxious activity around you. And as children, we pick up on those things and we mimic our parents. So these things truly aren't genetic. It's a matter of us seeing them and embodying them and thinking that this is who we are. Or I don't know how many times I have women say, oh, but it's in my genes. I'm like, yeah, it's in your genes, but you decide if you allow that to express itself in you. You have that power. And I've seen many women take on something and then decide that they don't want it after working on it, and they let it go, and they're no longer an anxious person. They're no longer a depressed person. They're no longer someone who doesn't believe in themselves, who doesn't love themselves, because they can make that choice. And it's really that simple to make that choice and say, no, this isn't me.
yeah, and epigenetic stuff is really powerful to look at how we do have control of how our genes express themselves and how the many things we can do, because what we eat can affect which genes get expressed. Food, I talk about food being information. It comes into our bodies and says, we have access to lots of healthy food. We have all the vitamins and nutrients and micronutrients we need. And then our body says, okay, this is a good place to live and grow and thrive. It's very different than if we feed our bodies with things that make our body feel depleted. And then our body says, oh, this is not a safe place. We need to conserve all the energy we can. There's not reliable sources of food, and our body will respond differently. So, Yeah, it's interesting
Exactly.
to look it up.
Epigenetics is this new science. It's relatively new, but it is the future. It can help us stop so many diseases. It's pretty much to say that a disease is not genetic, that it's our choice. And through nutrition, like you do, through mental health, through changing your mindset, there's different ways of coming at it. Because if you just focus on nutrition, but you still have a shitty mindset, you may not have the physical illnesses, but you're going to have some mental illnesses. Same way, you can focus on the mental and not on your physical body. And you need both of them. You need to have both aspects in alignment together to truly be your happiest and best self.
And I think through this is important. You talk about having a choice in how we behave and respond, but I think that sometimes people take that and say, oh, then it's my fault if I have mental health challenges. But no, it's not. There are conditions that contribute to you feeling that way, but you do in the moment have a choice about how you respond and what you do with the information and the knowledge you have. Would you agree with that?
I agree completely. So it's all about stress and stressors. So the biggest cause of mental health illnesses is stressors. So our body, every person has kind of a limit on how much stress they can handle in their day-to-day world. And when we exceed that amount, if the stressors in our world exceed what we can handle, that's when mental health issues and other issues start to develop in us, mental, physical, all different kinds. So we need to be more resilient. And some people naturally have that resilience where they can handle large amounts of stress. And there's other people that have very little resilience. They can handle very little before they start getting affected by it. So it's learning how to mentally manage that stress, how to become more resilient, but also to how to manage your life so that you aren't putting yourself in those stressful situations. If you work in a high stress job, you're exposed to that on a daily basis. Is that really good for you? Yes, it pays the bills, but what about 10 years from now when you have a heart attack and you die because the stress has just overwhelmed your body? Or you have mental health issues or anything else goes on? It's really about a matter of controlling your life, and you are in control. You can say yes or no, you can manage what's going on, and you're putting yourself in these situations and you have that ability to take them out. Doesn't mean it happens overnight. Some of these things, like, finding a different job that's better for you, yeah, it takes time, but it's available to you. For you to say, oh no, I have nothing available, this is it, then you're playing that victim. And this is where I tell women, you don't want to play the victim. When you play the victim, then you feel like you're out of control and there's nothing you can do. But if you believe that you're in control of your life and what happens, then you can actually make the changes. So stop being the victim and start being the victor, and knowing that you can actually make changes. They may not be easy, but you can actually make them. And then it's your choice. Do I want better or do I want to stay stuck?
All right. So, Jen, the practical piece, what do we do with this now that we've got some new insights, some recognition of how our maybe trauma from childhood or other experiences could contribute to our mental health? What can we do with that information? How do we use that to make a difference?
Yeah. So awareness is the big key. And start watching. Like I said, watch what you're saying to yourself. Watch the actions you take. Are you putting yourself into stressful situations? Are you a person, because we can actually become addicted to stress, because stress can kind of feel good. We get it, our blood gets pumping, we feel good. So it's starting to recognize, am I putting myself in stressful situations? Am I causing more problems? Is there ways that I can reduce my stress level at home, at work, in my personal life? What can I do to make myself feel better and to make myself a priority? Because as women, we generally put ourselves up to the back burner and put everybody else first. But you're not going to be the best mom, the best sister, the best, worker, the best employee. You're not going to be the best person if you're not your best self. So it's not selfish to put yourself first. It's actually selfless, because when you're your best version, you're better able to help others and you're a better role model for the other people in your life. So start putting yourself first, start working on the issues that are bothering you. If you're not happy with your life, if you're not happy with something, start doing something about it. And that's sometimes just as simple as being aware of your thoughts, understanding them, and starting to make different with it. And removing your stress is a big one. Remove those stressors from your life and you're going to notice a big change.
All right, Jen, and I know you had a tool to share with us, a free resource we can use, which I think will help with reducing some of that stress you're talking about.
Yeah, so being a hypnotherapist, I became one because I seen how powerful hypnosis was for changing that fight or flight response, for actually digging into our subconscious mind and changing our beliefs. So I've created this relaxation hypnosis. So when you're feeling really stressed, when your mind doesn't shut off at night because you're thinking about 20 million things, and then that's preventing you from sleep. And as we know, sleep is the most important thing to battle stress and mental health issues, because if we're not sleeping, our mental health issues get worse. So this relaxation hypnosis is so powerful, and it helps us to calm our body down, to just make ourselves so relaxed so that we can sleep better, so we feel better. And it's just an amazing hypnosis for, I call it kind of the jack of all trades. It just makes you feel good, and it helps with, calming the nervous system, so many different things. So I'm providing that as a free gift. So if you're needing that little extra help, if you are having trouble sleeping, if you're highly stressed, if you've just wanted to try hypnosis. I know so many people have been curious, but they've never had the opportunity. This is a great opportunity for you to try it and just see, is this going to work for me, and get the nice side effects of it at the same time.
All right, so what about people who are concerned about hypnosis? Because we see hypnosis as like losing control, someone else taking over our mind, some of those myths around hypnosis. So what can you tell us about that that might reassure people who are a little nervous maybe about trying this out?
Yeah, thanks for asking, because I get that all the time. And there's good reason. I mean, I was involved one of those, stage hypnosis shows in
Mm-hmm.
college where they made me cluck like a chicken. So people see those things, and there's this misconception where hypnosis, they're taking over control of you and you have no control over yourself. But in therapeutic hypnosis, it's actually the exact opposite, is you're an active player. So while you're listening to this hypnosis, you're fully conscious. You're just in a different brainwave. So we call it the theta brainwave, and it's actually the same brainwave that you're in when you're in REM sleep. So that part of your night where you're at your least deep sleep, where your eyes are always flickering, like if you look at someone when they're sleeping and you see their eyes flickering and their eyelids moving, that's REM sleep. And it's that theta brainwave, and that's where our subconscious mind works on. So we're just getting you into that. So you're completely aware, you're listening to the audio. When I do the one-on-ones, we're having an active conversation. So it's not like you're waking up and going, oh, what did I just hear? You're actually waking up and going, oh, I loved all of that. That's, I like, I love what she said here, and I love that. And I have clients tell me that all the time. It's like, oh, it just, hearing your voice calms me. Like just hearing it, because after you do it the first time, the more you listen, the more effect it has on you. And I have some people, they're like, I need you every night. Like if I don't listen to you every night and listen to my audio, it's like I just don't feel right. So it's actually very calming and relaxing and completely safe. Nobody in hypnosis can ever make you do something you don't want to do. And even those stage shows, if you truly didn't want to do something, you wouldn't have done it under hypnosis. It's just most of the people that go up to do those are the type of people that are open minded and are okay with doing things. So, of course, we're willing to do most of the things someone tells us. So, never worry about doing something you don't want to, because that'll never happen.
All right, thanks, Jen, for explaining that because I think there are misconceptions about hypnosis, and that's really important. I will share the link for that in the description of this talk so people can download that resource and get access to it. One last question before we wrap up. I'm always looking for book recommendations. I see you've got a great bookshelf behind you. What would you recommend to somebody who wanted to further explore either mindset or hypnotherapy or mental health and trauma? What would be your book recommendation?
Oh, so for me, it was the very first book that sent me down this road to mindset, and it's The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And there was just something about it. He introduced me to this whole mindset piece and about the subconscious mind, how it works, and how we create these glass ceilings for ourselves. And I use that concept all the time. It's these, we only allow ourselves this much success or this much money or this much happiness. And he talks about it beautifully. And I think everybody should read that book. It's just so amazing. So yeah, The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks.
I actually have that on my bookshelf. It was given to me by someone and I have never read it. And so many people have recommended it. So I should
Oh,
really take that one down and read through it.
yeah,
I will
it's
do that.
amazing. Love it. It's such a good book.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Jen. This has been great. Again, there's so many different things to understand that support our mental health and wellness and physical health as well, as you mentioned. And so it's important to kind of recognize these different tools and to find the ones that work best for each of us individually and for what we need right now. So I really appreciate you joining us for Mental Health Mondays today. So that was great. We'll be back again next Monday. I'm doing again this series of interviews about different things that contribute to our overall mental health and wellness. So we've got a series of interviews. So check in again next week to see who is here and what other perspective they're sharing. I'm having a great time finding these different experts and different people who can add to our toolkit, add different ways that we can all support our own mental health and wellness. So thanks so much for joining us today, Jen.
Thanks for having me. I really enjoyed our time together.